Welcome to a new update. In this update, we are discussing where Bitcoin might be going and what my primarily scenario is in the markets. Are we close to a bottom and what are we going to expect for the coming year? That's what we're discussing in this update. But before we're going to continue, do not forget to subscribe indeed, like this YouTube update, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram as we're doing a giveaway on Twitter where you can win very cool prizes. It's a weekend again, so we're giving away massive prizes. So definitely check out my Twitter if you want to see what those prizes are. So what is the scenario that we're looking at with the markets right now? Are we actually going to be in a bull cycle again, or are we facing a bear market? Well, first of all, the first start, or what I'm expecting to see happening in December, is actually that Bitcoin is going to bottom out at the area at 40k. Above there, that's primarily the key indicator for this entire scenario. If Bitcoin is losing that level, I think we are eager for a heavier correction to take place. So the first one is Bitcoin is close to a bottom, in which we can also see that long-term holders aren't really selling at this point. They're also not buying. That's also a key and another indicator, but they are not selling at this stage, meaning that we are not at the top of a bull cycle. We are not seeing the actual euphoria that we should be seeing, which we have been seeing earlier in this year. So we're just somewhere in the middle. We are stuck. No one knows which direction we are actually going. Bull, bear. Everyone has their arguments, but long-term holders are not selling. Also, key indicators are also not signaling that we are currently at a bear market or a bull market. And the actual standard peak of a bull cycle didn't really take place. The effect is that we are seeing a lengthening cycle in which we're just prolonging the previous, or this cycle in which this one will be longer than the previous one, just like the cycle of 2014 to 2017 has been longer than the one before that. What we also see is that the interest is on its lowest level ever. At least for this year, the interest for crypto is very low. I can see it personally when it comes to the growth of my social media channels. The interest is just not there. While also, if you post anything bullish, you get very bearish arguments, showing that the actual depression or depressive state of mind is currently where we are acting with the markets. Then, what do I suspect to see happening too? Well, if we go back to history, December is the best month to buy altcoins. So I'm expecting that the altcoins will be bottoming out during this month as well, and that they will be starting to accelerate coming from Q1. And that's where we get into the tricky part. Usually when Bitcoin starts to run, altcoins suffer in their Bitcoin pairs. However, should we still be looking at Bitcoin pairs, or should we start to look at ETH, as not only Bitcoin has been showing strength, but actually ETH is way stronger in this cycle than Bitcoin is. So I think a new run is to start in Q1 in January, and I think ETH will be the key indicator to watch. That one is the strongest asset at this point, and it's actually the first layer of the entire ecosystem of crypto. So I think that Ethereum is most likely going to be the trigger for continuation upwards. Also, if Bitcoin bottoms out, of course, altcoins will do well and Ethereum will just do the exact same. But the goal is not to outperform Bitcoin anymore. The goal is to outperform Ethereum. That is what I'm seeing in this cycle. So I think that Bitcoin will be copy-pasting a run of what we've seen in 2020 and 2021, in which there's two scenarios that we could be seeing. If we have the thesis of the actual impact that Bitcoin is going to copy-paste what we've seen in 2020, we could be seeing a very extended or vertical run taking place in Q1 and Q2, where Bitcoin runs to somewhere 250, 300k and is done with its actual run. Then we start a bear market, which is going to be multi-years, or at least more than a year before the halving hype of 2024 or 2023 is going to actually take over, and then we start running again, just like we have been doing in the previous cycles. That could be a scenario that we're just extending ourselves, have a window of 6 to 9 months to actually make the money that we want to make, and then the current period is one of the best periods to actually start buying your assets, have a vertical run, run to 250 to 300k somewhere in Q2, Q3 of 2022, then have a very heavy crash of the standard 80%, resulting into a retest of the peak high in May of 2021. And after that, we can start doing a new cycle once again. This also lines up with potential acceleration of tapering, hikes of the interest rates, or just the collapse of the financial system, which is going to happen somewhere within the next few years. That's the first scenario, which is also a lengthening cycle. The second scenario is that Bitcoin relatively remains calm and that Ethereum is the key trigger. In that case, we could be seeing that Bitcoin continues running upwards, consolidating, just relaxed growth, not really accelerating too much, in which Bitcoin runs to somewhere between 120 to 150k, goes sideways, retest levels, just like we have been doing since May, which is currently 7 to 8 months. We have seen a beautiful run to 69k, and then we have been seeing a correction right now again. So it might be taking some months before we're actually going to break the all-time high again, which is different than Ethereum, which is in which Ethereum is going to be breaking all-time highs way easier as it's a stronger asset. So in that case, 2022 is going to be a relatively boring year for Bitcoin, in which we just keep retesting those levels and just grinding upwards. In that case, we are potentially seeing an even longer cycle and are going to have another peak run to 2023, in which the peak is going to be higher than what the peak could be in 2022, but inevitably the crash will also be heavier in 2023, and retesting the level at 60k is still most likely what I expect to see happening at this point, as Bitcoin will go into regions of overvaluation. So resume of this actual start of this update is bottoming out during December, running or starting to run in 2022. The key is not to outperform Bitcoin anymore, but ETH. And also, there's two scenarios. Either Bitcoin will remain calm during 2022 and will peak out in 2023, or we're going to have an accelerated run in 2022 Q2, and then we have a bear market. So let's head to the charts, in which I want to describe a few important things that I've been seeing to actually underline what I've been saying. So to add to the actual scenarios, there's a few things that I want to show in this actual update. The first one that I'm looking at is the actual impact of total supply held by long-term holders, which you can see through the entire cycle of Bitcoin, which has been dropping heavily during the actual 2013 bull cycle, which has been dropping heavily during the 2014 cycle, but the more important parts in the recent runs. So what we can see is that during the run of 2017, the actual long-term supply or supply held by long-term holders has been dropping heavily, in which they started buying back into the actual bull cycle or in the bear cycle of 2018. And they have also been selling during the actual run of earlier this year. And right now, as a matter of fact, they are not selling at all. They're just slowly selling their positions. So they position long still in the markets, through which the assumption can be made that we are not as a matter of fact, into an actual bear market at this stage, or we are at the peak of the bull run. We are currently just stuck in the middle, as nobody really has a clue of where we are going at this point. So when we're looking at the Puell multiple, which is also a key indicator, you can do it with multiple assets at this point. You can also look at the M4RV ratio, the Z-score, or the ratio itself. But if we're looking at the Puell multiple, we can conclude that we've had a beautiful run in the earlier period of this year. Right now, even though Bitcoin is at 48k, the Puell multiple is already dropping heavily, getting into stages where it's actually interesting to start longing your position, as that is what this indicator shows overall. So where are we in this stage? Well, we could be in the phase of 2016. We might still be looking at a year like 2017 to experience, which sounds crazy, but we could still be seeing something like that taking place, especially when Bitcoin is going to crack the all-time high or when Ethereum is going to show strength. This indicator also shows that we're currently not at the peak of this cycle. We are actually in the middle, and we're actually getting into stages where the valuation of Bitcoin is relatively low, based on this indicator and based on multiple on-chain indicators. We can say or conclude that Bitcoin is not overvalued, but actually getting undervalued, in which there is a tremendous opportunity in the markets at this point. Then the final concept that I want to discuss is the fact that the best point to buy your altcoins is December, as ADA against Bitcoin also has been showing that we have been seeing runs happening in Q1 of the year, and that Q4 is usually the worst period to actually start buying your assets. Ethereum against Bitcoin has been doing the exact same, and right now we can see that there is an outlier when it comes to Ethereum against Bitcoin, probably given the fact that the supply has become deflationary, and probably because of the fact that Ethereum is the key indicator of this market instead of Bitcoin. So when we're looking at the history of ADA against Bitcoin, we can see that Q1 has been the runners of the period, and that Q1 is actually the best period for altcoins overall. So in that case, what is the area that you should be looking at for ADA in my point? I think it's the area that we've marked here. We're getting into points of interest for this one, and we're getting into points of interest when it comes to the crypto markets overall. So this is my scenario for the coming year to come. I expect us to run quite heavily. I expect the cryptocurrencies or altcoins to still do well, and I think that right now is one of the best opportunities to look for. This is the update for today. I'll be back tomorrow with a project review. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.